All right. Good afternoon or early evening or middle of the day, depending which part of the US you are located. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Lytinen. I am the director of the DBA program here at Weatherhead School of Management. And I'm happy to sort of start this first webinar where we introduce the program and also introduce some of the faculty who teaches in this program and what they have been able to accomplish in this program. What we are going to do first, we are going to hear a presentation by Professor Richard Boyatzis from the Organizational Behavior Department about his work and research on coaching and how he has also leveraged this program in doing this research. We will get some sense how the program works, what results we get out of it. And then we will hear from one of our alumni who has also worked in the same area, Joan Farrell, who is currently at the University of Southern Florida, a faculty member. And after that, we will have short presentations and question and answer session concerning the program itself. And whatever interest you have about the program, we'll have a short discussion of that. But that's pretty much shortly the program which we are going to run in the next hour or so. And I will leave the floor now to Richard Boyatzis.
Great, thanks, Kalle. Well, let me, as I get my screen going here, let me point out that I actually teach a course on leading change in the program, which is focused on understanding how you get sustained desired change, whether individually, dyads, teams, organizations, communities, countries. And in the process, one of the things that I like to go over is the results of what a lot of our research has been showing, which is how do you motivate people? So one of the things I would like to start with is the observation that when you're in a leadership position, one of the major responsibilities you have is to inspire other people, to motivate them to learn and change. The engagement numbers worldwide are abysmal pre-COVID, suggesting that we have a real motivation crisis. And a lot of people think that leadership is all about managing budgets and numbers, which is absolutely ridiculous because you're managing people who often are managing people, who often are managing people, who often are managing people, who often are managing people who actually do the work. So because you're not actually doing the work, your job is to get those other people excited. One of the elements of this, how do you inspire people, is we have a lot of myths that have grown up in management, in leadership, even in the fields of helping, that just are proving wrong now as we are doing our behavioral studies, longitudinal studies, our fMRI, neuroimaging studies, our hormonal studies. And by the way, when I talk about the studies, 2/3 of all of the research that I get involved in are done with folks that are in this particular DBA program. And it's one of the reasons why it's so exciting as a program. So what I'm doing is I'm not talking about the whole thing about leading change. I'm not even talking about the whole thing on leadership or parts of emotional intelligence and all that. I'm going to focus in on this issue of how do you inspire people to learn or change. And by the way, everything we're going to talk about equally applies to you as a parent, nevertheless as a manager or leader. One of the issues is that learning and change is stressful. It may be mild stress, but it is enough of a dose of stress, of annoying stress. Then you add COVID and social disruption, acute stressors. But we are, even pre-COVID, most of us as professionals and executives are dosed at a daily level with so much annoying stress that the research makes it very clear that we are cognitively, perceptually, and emotionally impaired. When you add to that the fact that when you're in a leadership position or position of responsibility or helping, you have what Dave McClellan called power stress. You feel the responsibility of doing it. All of that compromises your ability to get anybody else excited. So let me start with a brief exercise, because you can't really understand this stuff unless you go into the emotional aspects of it. Think about Who has helped you the most in your life? Think about your whole life, not just work, and answer the question, who has helped me become who I am the most? Who has helped me get to where I am? And let yourself reflect on a few of those people. And as you think of somebody, then ask the question, thinking about a moment in which you learned something important from them. What did they say or do? Now, normally, if this was a full webinar, or certainly our classes, we'd have plenty of time to go through this and we'd be talking about it. I'm going to be kind of racing through this, but I want you to think about somebody in your life who has helped you become who you are or get to where you are in one of those moments. Because when you do, something important starts to happen. You actually start to feel, at the moment you're thinking about these people in the moments, grateful, thankful, feeling love. And in those aspects of it, you're activating what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, the only part of your nervous system and hormonal system that allows you to ameliorate the ravages of stress. I started studying an early version of this theory about how people change back in the spring of 1967, when I was just coming out of 6.5 months of working for Northrop Norair, working on the designs for what became the reusable shuttle. My specialty was control systems and interplanetary vehicles. I was graduating from MIT at the time. But in the process, I realized that, most of what happens in work organizations is underutilizing talent. I mean, here we had 2 departments of Sheldons, if you follow Big Bang Theory, and I was appalled at how little the managers got out of us. Started working on this. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but suffice it to say, what became very clear, even in the early 60s and into the 70s, is you need what we now call complexity theory to understand how humans and our social systems change. And the fact is that when you start and think about these moments with people who helped you the most, they almost all have to do with somebody who approaches you around your personal vision or a dream or a possibility, or endorsing your strengths. It's the opposite of what often happens when people are trying to do performance reviews, or teachers or coaches or therapists. They spend a lot of time saying, well, giving you feedback about how you're acting and talking about your weaknesses. And in complexity terms, I think each one of us have inside of ourselves 2 emotional attractors, things that pull us around them. The positive emotional attractor is being in the parasympathetic nervous system, the empathic neural network, which enables you to be open to people and ideas and thinking about positive things. The negative is being in the sympathetic, which is the stress arousal, the analytic network in the brain, neural network, and negative affect. And there really is a difference between the states of these 2 attractors. These are psychophysiological states. It's the difference between thinking about possibilities versus problems, dreams versus expectations, optimism versus pessimism, hope, fear, strengths, weaknesses, excited about trying something versus a performance improvement plan, which is deadly. Well, what we have been showing in 39 published longitudinal behavior change studies on 25 to 65-year-olds, 3 fMRI studies, and 2 hormonal studies, is that sustained desired change starts in what I'm calling the positive emotional attractor. Because if you start in the negative emotional attractor and you focus on the problem, or you focus on what needs to be changed, you're giving people feedback that just makes them feel as if you're a helping bully. We know that when you start in the negative emotional attractor, you will never succeed. That's why people who are volume challenged, who are trying to lose weight, never will. It's why treatment adherence in almost every therapeutic problem that medicine faces is 50% or lower. Cardiothoracic surgeons tell me it's 20% in people with bypass surgery. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the way physicians and nurses present why you should do the things you're supposed to do is to try to scare the crap out of you. and it doesn't work. So what we've been doing in the last 30 years is focusing in on how the helping part of a leader's role, the inspiring people to motivate them and learn, is really fostered by feeling and arousing this positive state. Now, you need both states. You need stress to wake up, but it's never helpful at the dosage levels that we're exposed to. And very often people think the way you're going to motivate somebody is give them data, give them another goal, give them another metric. We now have the evidence to show that when you do specific goal setting at the beginning, or try to give people negative or constructive criticism even at the beginning of a change process, you actually turn their brain off. So the dilemma is, whatever is in your mind and heart, you are sympathetically arousing the other person. It happens through a neural network called the default mode network, where you literally stimulate emotions in others. And the only people that are blocked from that are people with some degree on the autism spectrum. The stress response hits a whole bunch of endocrines that hit your body. They move your blood pressure up because they're pulling blood away from a lot of distal capillaries. But what they're doing is also turning off your immune system and stopping neurogenesis, which is the conversion of stem cells in the hippocampus and olfactory lobe to new neurons, which you need. And you feel lousy. Now, if this just goes on, you're hollow, you're dead. But this is why you bounce back. The parasympathetic nervous system releases different endocrines. This is where your body starts to feel lifted. You literally engage in neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons. Your immune system is in high gear. You're cognitively at your best in this state. All of this is based on multiple published studies in medicine and sometimes in psychology. So part of what we have to help people with, the leaders, is how to balance their renewal and their stressors. I mean, I have an article coming out this month, literally, in one of the big journals. It's a series of studies we did showing that you have to do a number of these activities repeatedly every day to counterbalance the stress. And by the way, our study is showing that something I've been claiming since I was doing psychotherapy with alcoholics and drug addicts in the 70s is that you need a lot of smaller periods, small doses, 15-minute periods throughout the day. And the more different techniques you use, I'm listening to techniques on this side that have 5 or more published medical studies showing they work for men, women, every ethnicity, race, etc. But the key is you can't wait. You can't wait till the weekend. So when you're trying to help someone or motivate them, you don't want the context to be a problem, because that leads to the negative emotional attractor and they shut down. You want the context to be their dreams about a future possible life and the caring relationship that you have with them. We have all these longitudinal studies. I'm not going over all the data. We don't have time. We've got a lot of fMRI studies, but part of the dilemma is of the major networks in the brain, 2 of them act antagonistically. So what happens is every time you go into specific goal setting or financial analysis or anything nerdy or analytic, you suppress the empathic network, which is what you need to be open to new ideas and other people. So every time a leader starts a meeting with financials, I can guarantee you're in the presence of an ineffective leader. Why? Because they're boring people. They're closing them down. Of course, you have to get to financials. You know, I ran 2 companies for 11 years, several hundred people in them, mostly with PhDs. You need to do that. But if you open things with that, if you start the context of how you're talking to people with specifics, that's why specific goal setting is the kiss of death if you start it too soon. You need it much later in the process. So what's happening is we really need you to neurologically and hormonally be moving back and forth, toggling. We put it to a test. One of our fMRI studies showed 30 minutes of talking about your dreams versus 30 minutes of talking about problems you're facing, lit up the lateral visual cortex where you imagine things, and lit up parts of your empathic network where you're more open. And lo and behold, when you talk about people's problems, it goes into the analytic network and they close down. We then replicated, we won an award with that study, got it in the process of getting it published at the time. And we did another study with 50 people rather than 20, half males, half females. And again, we showed the same replication, but we also showed that if you had 2 or 3 30-minute sessions talking about dreams and compassion and gratitude, the positive emotional attractor, you activated this yellow area. It's called the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. It's down here. It's a part of the empathic network. And Naomi Eisenberger's research has shown repeatedly, this is the one thing in your brain that activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have a lot of techniques to help people who are managers, coaches, leaders, therapists, parents, renew themselves. Because if you're feeling stressed, you are infecting others with it, even if you think you're not. So a lot of the helping process has to rely on vision and dreams, not goals, on the quality of your caring relationship, and on the strengths, not the weaknesses. We have a whole book that came out this past year from Harvard Business Review, professors Melvin Smith and Ellen Van Olsen and myself, who Ellen runs the coaching research lab at Weatherhead, that talks a lot about this, but I thought I'd give you a taste of it. We also have an app coming out that we're going to be very excited that people can use it for their own process. But in the DBA program, we're not just doing this to help you, because that's a good master's level job, kind of focus. We're also trying to stimulate the amount of interest you can have in doing research on these things to test them. Because let's face it, folks, life's too short. This isn't a dress rehearsal.
Yes. Well, yes, I'm happy to introduce Joan Farrell Quinn. She is a graduate, I think, 2013, 14, around that time, if I remember exactly. And she's actually a graduate from a PhD part of this program. And she worked for Richard, and she's been studying leadership in professionals, especially medical profession. And that has been her forte, but she has also many other things after that. So Joan, welcome.
Thanks, Kelly. So Richard talked about change, and I came to this program. I sought out this program because I was actually seeking change myself. And I, as it was alluded to, I was in capital markets and investment management. And I wanted to study why people acted the way they did. Like, why was I creating all of these policies and procedures and had all these employees that were bright people, and yet they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing? So that was perplexing to me. And my last role, I was a vice president in a small investment firm overseeing about 1.4 billion, and literally stressed to the point of recurring sickness. I had recurring shingles, and now I feel like I was very young. I was actually only in my mid 30s when I decided I wanted to make a change. And I think I kind of joke about it, but I really think my early midlife crisis started about 30. It was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing in my life? So I don't know if Richard remembers this, but when I was graduating from the program, I said I wanted to be in a college of medicine and business. And he essentially told me that wasn't likely to happen. Maybe he said something like it wasn't likely to happen soon, but that kind of stuck in my head. So what my journey, I'll tell you a little bit about my journey, and I'm happy to, of course, answer any questions you have. But so I did study physician leadership in particular. I was looking at emotional and social competencies of physician leaders and studying identity aspects as well of their roles and as leaders. And so I started on that physician leadership path, but I also thought at some point I should probably go teach someplace because I want to get a job after, and I really was making like a major life change. And so I went to University of South Florida, and I actually started teaching in the management department out at their Polytechnic campus of the university at that time. It doesn't exist anymore. And so as a result of changes in the university, they actually did away with the management department as they rolled everything back up, and they rolled the Polytechnic back up into the university. So I thought, oh my gosh, what the heck am I going to do now? And so I was talking to a colleague who's actually a coach, and she was really instrumental in pushing me to go over to the College of Medicine. And then things got really weird, because I went over to the College of Medicine. I had no idea that they had a program that was essentially constructed around Richard's research. So I went in, I talked to the associate dean of curriculum, and as I'm talking to him, I'm looking at his bookshelf and I'm seeing resident leadership, becoming a resident leader workbook. And I'm like, why do you have these books? And so as it turned out, they had started this Select MD program, which is essentially a leadership program for the undergraduate medical education students. And it's a small program. We're up to about 60 students a year. And then we have a regular core traditional program without the additional curriculum that's 120 students a year.
Just to clarify, when you say undergraduate, you mean the 4
I mean
years of medical
MD.
school
Yeah.
after somebody
Yes.
graduates.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for clarifying that, because that is confusing. So a UME program is the MD program. So that's where people go to become medical doctors. And so I've been there since 2014 in medicine. I actually am now associate professor in the College of Medicine, but I'm also a professor in the College of Business. And so I went over there a few years ago, and actually when they started the doctoral program, so they started the Doctor of Business Administration program there. And so I went and I helped out with, the initial construction of that program. And I am very happy to, now be able to teach, and on both sides, I teach leadership and emotional intelligence in medicine. I also, I call that my day job. I moonlight over in business. I oversee some doctoral dissertations and teach actually the Intro to Research Methods class, which I absolutely love. And then I have another new hat that I'll be wearing. We started a new education institute between our teaching hospital, Tampa General Hospital, and the University of South Florida. So I'm the academic director for that new program. So it's been quite a journey. So I started out, and I started out in physician leadership, as I said, for research. Now I have a lot of different research paths that I've been pursuing. I still study emotional social competencies, along with empathy in particular, and burnout in medicine across the continuum. I have a really fun research project that I started in virtual human standardized patient simulation. So I've partnered with a tech company for the university to create new simulations and study how we interact with virtual humans as opposed to the regular actual humans in simulation. I have another study in leadership and decision-making during COVID, because of course everybody had to have a study during COVID. And I have a series.
I have got to add, you have actually been successful at getting more NSF and NIH grants than I have.
Okay,
so I am in awe.
So I have a couple of NSF grants as well, so National Science Foundation grants, and through my NSF work, I've created an assessment of emotional social competencies that are important for success in graduate programs in natural sciences and engineering. And Richard, as he mentioned earlier, we have a new study in emotional social competencies and coaching within medical education. So between our faculty coaches, for the most part, MD faculty coaches with our MD students. So I've tried to branch out a little bit. I get bored easily, so I got to keep things going in a lot of different areas.
So I'm going to offer just a short overview and many of the things which we have covered in the discussion already. Just a few observations, and many of these can be found if you need. We are the oldest of this type in the management schools, as Richard mentioned. We started in 25, so this is the 26th year. This is a full 3-year, 60 credit hour course. It's organized in a way that you will travel 6 times a year to the Cleveland, three days each time. And then on top of that, each term will have 3 remote residencies, which are virtual like this, mostly Zoom interactions. And there's also some other online work which you have to do. We established also the cohort structure. Typically, each cohort is about 16 to 20 students. Smallest have been 14, largest have been 24. We know that if you go over 25, it typically doesn't work, and less than, I would say, 13, 14 is also not optimal. That's pretty much optimal for the cohort, the diversity, and also the experience of the students. Average age is 46, so as Richard mentioned, a lot of people come here and come through this program to recover or to sort out their midlife crisis. The innovation of the program from the start was that this is an interdisciplinary program. So it's a broad social science field focused program, which in the content side focuses on topics which are important and which were never taught in MBA classes. Like we look at things like global politics, global relationships, global markets, global institutions, issues of collective action, social construction and impact of technology, design of technology, social ethics, sustainability. And if you look at the topics which are in the minds of the managers and in a sense also which keeps them awake at night, these are the types of topics which typically they need to attend. And we want to focus on practitioner scholarship, which is that we start with your problems, we work on those problems with you, so in a way that you can provide some understanding at the end that why this works as it does. And it happens through the education which provides a full gamut of understanding of major social science research methods. That after that one, you will be rigorously trained in major social science research methods, which is that you learn to do something on qualitative research, you learn to do something on quantitative research, and you also learn how to actually work and develop research designs which integrate both qualitative and quantitative designs. This is just the financial parts. Its tuition is 52,000 per year, 3 years. It's a 18 credit course hours per year, 6 courses. And if you look at how much time it says, we don't say that this is a part-time program, actually. We say it's a residency-based doctoral program. Average time which students take to get through this program, and you can ask it from some of the current students, alumni, that how long it takes, but typically about 30 hours a week. And that's also one mentioned requirement when we ask that, can you budget that into your work? If you put much less expectations about how much you can allocate time, you're probably not going to be successful. It takes time to learn to become a scholar. We have also some scholarships if you are interested in, and these are mainly allocated for non-profit and public sector applicants, and they range from 10 to 20%. If you like, if you say that what are the distinct characteristics of them, I would say that the first one, which is not the two actually main characteristics. That first, that the education provided by the faculty and the faculty involvement is very different from most of the other ones in the sense that it's collaborative effort. And we also have a lot of world-class faculty teaching in the program, also mentoring the program. It's also interdisciplinary in the sense that both the method courses and the content courses are taught by interdisciplinary teams. So it's not like just marketing faculty, OB faculty or something like that. It's across the whole field. Students are expected to work on a broad spectrum of data, the types of data which you would experience in in complex management problems. But we teach them to work on the analytics side, and we are actually increasing currently more analytics types of methods into the curriculum. And it also provides this program the opportunity to upskill and contextualize management knowledge to build competencies for new types of problem solving and addressing in a different way business problems. So much of the education which you get here is also directly applicable to your daily work from the day one, and you can apply them in the different settings and situations where you work. And at the end, you will come out with the practice focused research capabilities, which are applicable across different fields and domains of management. So that's pretty much it. There's so much more in the website. If you want to go to the website, which is actually in the first page here, there are also several testimonies, video testimonies and other materials. So we provide a pretty extensive information about the program, all the courses, their content, things like that. So you can get a pretty comprehensive understanding what is expected and what is offered actually part of this program.